Going to say anything that you guys don't already know, right? It's who you know, how you get in the door, that type of thing. So we thought, since we're trying to shorten things, we're going to go through what we have and then look for questions. So if there's something we say and we assume that you understand, stop us, raise your hand, let us know. Well, we've had a lot of people ask how we've gotten into homeschooling, first of all. So I think that's how this started, because we have so many homeschool students that we actually have hired a homeschool mom to work with us. And some of the ways we've gotten into these are by doing practice PSATs, SATs, and ACT tests.
Yeah, so we'll get to the homeschooling part in a little bit. We're going to start with the charter and the private schools. So you're in a lot of your public schools probably, I'm guessing. The private schools are so much more receptive to us in our market than the public schools are. So they're hungry for resources, and so if you're not already trying to get into some of these schools, you should be. You're going to be received much more openly in most situations in those private schools, especially the smaller they are. As they get huge, sometimes they start having their own college people, but even in some of those, I've found that they're very welcoming of additional support. So some ways to do that, obviously, because of the experience that many of you had with the ACT or SAT practice test, it's a great way to be an introduction. What we found was that we had a small Christian school that had a small high school, and we used the opportunity to do a PSAT class, just a class, and we would go in and we would just do it like we would normally do our regular SAT class. And we would deliver that to them, and it was a great chance for them to, one, take the practice test, but also to get some of the tips, things like that. And it ended up that the president, or the principal, is now taking additional steps, and we've got some more leverage with her.
So our first time doing it, though, we didn't try to make money off of them. We just said, hey, here's the price of it, because that's back when we had to use books, right? So I literally carried a book in, showed her the price of the book, and so now that we can do the free test, we would probably just say $10, $15 a student if we were going into a new school. But back then we took the book and I showed her the price of the book, and she said, you know what, we'll add $10 a student just to help cover your time. They don't want us, they're always afraid that you're trying to make money off of them. So we always try to show them, hey, we're doing this as a community service. We just want to help you guys out. Now that we have the awesome test reports from Clear Choice, wow, that's amazing. And so now we've said, we'll have this report for you, because we have to take it all back and put it in the system. Just schedule an appointment with your parent and come in and get your test results. And this year, how many do you think you had in that SAT class at Lighthouse?
I had about 14 students in the PSAT class.
And at least 3 of them signed up to work with us that month after seeing their score reports. So I love the score reports. The school loves the score reports. So what I've done through the years with the principal is sit down with her and we'll look and see where are their trends that they're weak as a school. And they literally changed English classes over the fact that their kids didn't know punctuation. And then we would use the worksheet with them, right, when they came in and worked with us.
So now, as a result of building that initial kind of, we've gone through, I think, 3 different seasons of PSAT classes with that family. We did a summer with that school. We did a summer boot camp with them for SAT. We've kind of just packaged it in different ways to try to attract the kids to come in and practice tests, just so we would get exposure to these kids and they would know something about us. But the principal there was like, yes, more, we'll take more. And so because of that, we had an opportunity to do just have all your junior and sophomore parents come in. We were able to do a presentation, the 5 ways to make college more affordable. And we did that in partnership with like a local community college that they had come in and talk about financial aid. So it was a nice partnership opportunity too. So lots of things are popping up simply because we were willing to do it really cheap and based on their schedule, just to help them deliver something to some of their kids. Their interest is national merit. That's what they're wanting. They want us to help, get them to national merit. So, and every time I would provide these reports back to the principal, she was like, oh, this kid and that kid, wow, oh, I didn't realize that. It was just really powerful what she was getting from us, basically for free for her So as a result of that,
So we had a situation in Bloomington where homeschool families could not take the PSAT anywhere. Our two big high schools did not want them taking it at their high school because it brought their scores down. Lighthouse had housed them for the last 5 or 6 years for PSAT and kicked them out this fall because they didn't want them to bring their scores down. So Donna, our homeschool mom, and I put our heads together and we said, something's wrong here, because homeschool families have a different code when they take the test. So we talked to College Board. Sure enough, each of those schools, and by the way, this is not something we're going to share with our public schools, but we went to Lighthouse and shared it with them. And I'm saying that because if the public school thinks they can charge $20 a student to come in and take it, they'll let them take it, right? But Lighthouse is just wanting to do the service with us. So I met back with the principal about 2 months ago, and we were talking about things that we could do to help improve school for them. Like they struggle with AP classes. So that's part of why we did the thing with the community college, to show those kids how they can get dual credit classes. So I said to her, so how about that PSAT fiasco this fall? Because all the homeschool families hate her right now because she kicked them out. And she told them, I kicked them out because you brought our scores down. And she said, oh, Kim, I had no idea what a nightmare I was causing. People hate us. And she said, I can't have those homeschool families hate us because we get 2 or 3 a year that sign up to work with us for high school. And I said, well, what would you think if I told you that they didn't have to put your school code in? You should have seen her, she about fell off her chair. What? And I said, high school families have a separate code. They could come to your facility and take it because we couldn't get College Board to let us be a facility, we're not a school. I said, they could come to your facility and take it and put the homeschool code in, not the Lighthouse code. And she goes, oh, let's talk more about this. So we sat there, and in the end, what we came up with, because they actually have a space problem as well. And you're talking anywhere from 40 to 60 homeschool students coming into their little private school to take this test. But guess what? Class 101 can be. We can be classroom number 3. So we're now going to use our facility, starting with this fall, as Lighthouse classroom number 3, and they'll put the homeschool code in at our facility. We now have about 60 sophomores and juniors coming into class 101 in a non-threatening environment. And who do you think is going to read those score reports to them?
to take the PSAT, the actual PSAT. So we'll be delivering that in our office now for all homeschoolers, or those that sign up.
Through our partnership with Lighthouse. Can you tell about it? So we have a brand new charter school that's opened. So you know what I did? I met him at BNI. So I sent him an email and said, hey, I want to let you know what we're doing with Lighthouse. We're partnering with them for the PSAT. Are you guys an approved site yet? And he said, actually, we're working on it. I said, your kids can come to our facility that day. So if he doesn't have it approved by then, we're going to have the whole charter school coming as well.
So some of the other things then that are still ahead that you still could do with these schools is you could be a guidance counselor, because a lot of these little high schools didn't do it. That's what Tom did with Lexington Catholic, was it?
Dunbar High School, yes.
Okay. And so you could even have hours at that school every once in a while to help those kids and get exposure to those families. What a great way to get exposure. Did you get the kids to do that, Tom?
Yes, oh, absolutely.
Students? Yeah. You could deliver disc. I mean, you could set up a deal with them and say, hey, we'll charge this much, maybe cover your costs, just to get exposure to the kids. And if you're doing disc or any other type of activity with these students, they may be then turned on by, that level of activity, and they're like, what more can you provide me and get access to those kids? So some other ideas that you can do in some high schools that are near and dear to you.
Well, that disc real quick, just something, we all do that giveaway, that auction item that's free. And we used to always give an ACT class because nobody did ACT in our town but us. We now give a disc in the auction because we have a lot of families who maybe work with us or they just want to do test prep. We don't sell just test prep, so we don't want them coming in the door for just test prep. So we started last year giving away the disc. Families are eating that up, and it actually drove the auction item up twice as high as what it used to be on one of our high school's auction site, because nobody's doing that information for them. They're not getting that college career information even from their counselors to the level that we do it. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, let's move on to homeschooling. We're kind of crossing over with the PSAT though. Out of everybody in the room, I'm curious. how many of you have a homeschooler student or multiple? So about maybe half or a third of the room? Okay, so you've had some experience with dealing with homeschoolers and those families. It's a unique group of people. They are very independent. They are very independent-minded. It's sometimes hard to get them to move on things because they have their way of doing things. But this is really a cool market that I think you could expand into if you can get connected into the homeschool groups around your community.
So one of the things that we like to do with them, because homeschool parents are often teachers, educated teachers, who, in fact, the Donna who's working with us, she taught in one of our public schools, and that's why she said she knew her kids weren't going there. That's why she homeschooled, right? It's the fear of what they don't want them to know, what they don't want them exposed to. And the other thing is not wanting to be told what to do. I know, I don't want you to tell me what to do. So as we started working with homeschool families, we had a little bit of an advantage as our church hosts a lot of the homeschool programs, so we know a lot of those people. And I never ever tried to sell them. I would say, oh, just come in, let me give you a free hour consultation. We can talk about transcript, number one fear for homeschool families. What should my transcript look like? Let us just tell you some of the things that we do and some advice. So you know what I do? I'd immediately say, now what are your scores? Well, their scores are usually below average. So if you're a homeschool family with a 4.0 GPA and you're looking at a 16 ACT, you're going to have to start providing documentation. And I would tell these families this, and they all know the nightmare story of one of the families who had to provide a 3-ring binder for every science class, every math class, every English class, and I would name that mom by name because we work with them now. Her first one, she had to provide documentation for everything. She's never had to do that again because we're taking the ACT with our homeschool families. We're making sure English, math, reading, and science are all at college readiness levels to justify the GPAs they're giving their kids. Does that make sense? Okay. That's a huge thing for them. So as soon as we start talking about justifying it, they get really excited. And then I'll say to them, now, the lady had to provide all the documentation, her name's Kimberly. I'll say, now, do you want to have to provide the 3-ring binders like Kimberly did? And they're like, no. I'm like, let me help you on how to do that. And we're actually going to give you a presentation later. We'll show it to you that we do for their transcript.
So how do you find homeschoolers? Where did your homeschoolers come from, those that have homeschoolers in the room? BNI? Church.
Homeschooling association. Yeah.
So you got connected to a homeschooling association. So every state has a homeschooling association or multiple. So in your marketplace, it's as simple as just Googling it and seeing if you can find that group. It's a very active group, and there are usually lots of people that are involved in it. So that would be the very first place. And then there's usually a regional representative. So if you live in a certain county or a certain area within your state, there's usually if you go on that website, you'll find there's certain people that are responsible for your area. And getting connected with that person would be a great way to start kind of that relationship, whoever that couple or person is that's responsible for your region. But basically every state has one of these. So ours is the IAHE, Indiana Association of Home Educators. Yours may be named slightly differently, but I would just Google it and find that group if you haven't already found it.
So one of the big ones in Bloomington is Classical Conversations. I can't see this because of the glare, that's why I have my nose up there looking. Classical Conversations is nationwide, and Randy, thankfully, works with the president of the Columbus Group's president of Classical Conversations. And she had him in December, to talk to the whole group about what we do. So talking to that president, you said yesterday give something free away to people. We never hesitated to give our first homeschool family free. And it was the lady who had to provide all the documentation. I worked with her next child, free. Who do you think sends us the most referrals? That family, and they have 8 kids, so we've got longevity there.
So a lot of these are associated with churches or in church groups, so it might be through your own church that you're going to find these, it might be through somebody else's. But there are also some that are secular, that are not faith-based. So one of those that's up here on the screen is homeschoolconventions.com. That's one to look at. Teach Them Diligently is more of a faith-based one, but there are multiple classical conversations, national, but it tends to be more faith-based as well. Most of them are faith-based, but there are some secular ones too. So be open to looking for multiple kinds. Now, some of the things you could do, they have national conventions. They have state conventions. What a great place. It's really, the booths are not that expensive at those conventions. And the parents love going to those because they're looking for more curriculum. Constantly looking for curriculum to fulfill whatever responsibilities they feel like they've got with that next age group of kids. You know, as their kids going into high school, they're trying to figure out the, because it's not figured out for them. They have to do this. So you're going to run across tons of home educators if you go and do a booth or something like that at one of the national conventions in your state. So that's a great place to do it.
Are we on Facebook? Yeah, so Donna actually logged onto my Facebook and typed in homeschool. And like 30 different homeschool groups popped up in the greater Bloomington area, just on Facebook. So she said that if she was here, that's what she would tell you is where to start. Facebook, and then look for who do you know that's a common friend with the people that run that Facebook group for that group. That you're gonna have, that in small towns like us especially, as soon as she did, I said, I've never heard of those people, but we had 13 friends in common. So look for those in common friends so you know who to talk to help get you in.
If you connect to your local rep for that homeschool group, a great thing to offer them is a free ACT. I did that with one of ours, the Classical Conversations, and that was a very useful time because now I've got some of those parents calling us trying to get access to our resources.
Okay, so homeschool, what do we do differently? This is time consuming. You know, when you partner with a private school or a charter school, you're partnering with them. Well, guess what? Every single family, individually, thinks they're partnering with you. So it does take a little extra time. We actually have talked about charging the extended package or just having a higher price for homeschool families because you are going to give them a little bit more time. A lot of times, the parents are going to come to those appointments. We have that anyway, but with most of our homeschool families, when it's their first child, we will find the parents coming to the first 2 or 3 appointments just to make sure it's a safe place. You know, they want to see the environment, make sure we're not playing any hard rock music, that kind of thing. So we're partnering with each family independently. And then the transcript process, we really hold their hand through it, and we're going to show you that in a minute. And I talked about justifying scores. Sorry, I got ahead. I didn't realize they had the screens backwards. One of the things I wanted to bring up that we've done with Lighthouse, our private school, I told you how we've helped them figure out how to get dual credit for their kids. Believe it or not, what we're about to show you, I literally just helped the Lighthouse principal go through the same justification on the transcript. And she actually was calling me over Christmas break saying, I don't know how to code this. How would you code this class? And then I responded, she emailed back, she goes, well, how would you code this class? And they've had their first ever intern at their private school. He interned with us. And she goes, I don't know how to code the intern. And so we had it down to 2 codes, and thankfully I have a really good relationship with one of the high school intern teachers at our public school, and I emailed him and heard back with him in minutes as to which code we should use. So it's just that relationship building again. So this is the presentation that was developed by myself and 2 homeschool moms that I said we could give you if you'd like to. We actually do this in our office. I feel August is too late. We're going to do it in July this year because you can get some of those seniors, but we're going to do one here probably in the next month, trying to get the current juniors. This year's senior class was really small. There were only like 2 seniors, but guess what? Next year's class has like 40 that are graduating from our church homeschool group. Okay, so what do I fear?
So these are just the things that you want to sell to when you're trying to sell to a homeschooler. These are the things that they're worried about. Is there, this is kind of hard to come up with the transcript. How do I do it? What codes do I use? What titles do I use? And we've had parents come into us where they've got crazy transcripts they've developed that look so different than what's available to most colleges that they get from high schools. And so one of the pieces of advice that we give the families is let's make this look as realistic as what they're going to get, and the more you can duplicate the information going from your home school transcript to be similar to that that's coming from the high schools to the colleges, the easier it's going to be for your student to just kind of smoothly go through the process instead of all of the hoops that they usually have to jump through.
So I've been going through a few of these slides because if you did this as a presentation, you know, as a service to your homeschool family, you would have discussed those things in more detail. But today we wanted to not take your time, not waste your time. If anybody wants us to go back later, we can. So believe it or not, they don't always put the kid's full name. They might put Zach instead of Zachary. We actually have to teach them to do that. They don't ever want to give their social security number. And so we do tell them that when they submit things, they need to put that social security number on there. Total credits and GPA, they can get those things so out of whack, and their grade scales can be crazy. I saw one where it was 80 to 100 was an A. So we actually keep both, I know, 80 to 100 is an A. Okay, we gotta fix that. College is a great question, this. So we're saying this is what a college is a good question as we look at it with them, right? We actually keep a handbook from North and South high schools, our two high schools in town. We keep one of their handbooks in our office. And every year I have a junior who I say, hey, when you get your handbook for your senior classes, will you bring that to me when you're done? And so we always are updating those each year. And then I tell the homeschool families use their grading scale because it's the same as the other Bloomington high schools. And then graduation dates, even if it's whacked. We have some that will graduate in April. I tell them not to put anything down before May 15th, regardless of when they decide they're actually graduating. And then the whole testing of ACT and SAT scores and justifying again and putting those on there. People would not even sign these, believe it or not. So one of the big things is making sure they sign them. So do you want to go over the sample of, this is a bad one. Do you want to do it or do you want me to? Okay. So this was actually a transcript from a parent that brought it into us. It's so hard to see this laptop. Is this the one where she put soccer on it? Yeah, what are foundations in writing? Help me out here. Do you think a college is going to say, and I literally will say that, I'll look at them and say, okay, Amy, this looks like you're really busy, but what are foundations in writing? And they look at me like, well, what do you mean, what are foundations in writing? And we're like, that's what the school is going to ask you. And they're going to want a 3-ring binder on foundations in writing now. And the parents are so shocked as we tell them this.
So the solution is, Kim was saying that we get the high school books, you know, that tell us what the curriculum is going to be, is using those titles. So instead of saying physical science, I think it was one of them. What was that? I think it said physical science with lab.
Yep.
Why are we calling it that? Call it biology 1 for 9th grade, because that's when biology 1 is in 9th grade, right? As long as it matches up. If it was more chemistry, then call it chemistry in freshman year. But make it the same as what your high schools are doing. The other thing that was important that Kim learned many years ago, about 4 years ago, and by accident actually, right? It was by accident that you found it.
So we actually homeschooled our oldest sophomore, junior, and senior year. And when I did her transcript, I got out the high school book and used all their codes, right? So when Donna and I were going through this about 3 years ago, starting her son, who's now in college, this is his freshman year, but we were starting his transcript, I said, well, let's use those high school codes. That's what I did. That's why I was never asked for documentation. Well, those are the state codes. Okay, just dumb luck, 10, 15 years ago, but they're the state codes.
So you want to just use your state codes, right? Your state education codes. So instead of calling it whatever you called it, call it by the right name that the high school's calling it, and use that code that's from your high school, because that's the same as the state code. And then it's going to look like every other kid's transcript that comes in with biology 1, that's, you know, B101, or whatever the code is for the state. And that's the one you're going to have on, that's the one that other kids from the high school are going to have on. So there's no question. And the reason you want to do that is what Kim was talking about earlier. You have to provide all this documentation to support foundations in writing. What is foundations in writing? They want to know exactly what that is. So it's very intimidating to think I've got to provide all this documentation for my kid for one class, let alone multiple of that. This way it slides right through and they never have to do any documentation for that curriculum, more than likely. Now there are some schools that require some documentation regardless. Butler was one of those that we experienced.
So last year, one of our kids had to provide everything to Butler. But the kid that I worked with the year before didn't. So we don't think the mom put the codes on the transcript because we never got to see her transcript. Yes? Yes, sir.
So I'm sure you've had to have a difficult conversation where you see the 4 GPA, you see all these classes, and they get a 14 on science. Have you ever had to call anybody out and say, like, what did you actually do in this class? What did you learn?
Oh yeah, I have. And that mom's trying to sign her second son up with me right now. I've been avoiding it for 6 months. So guess what? I said, hey Donna, this lady's been trying to sign up for 6 months. Why don't you call her? And she goes, oh my gosh, they don't do any schoolwork. We had to hire her son a math tutor, a science tutor, an English tutor. We didn't hire, we told her who to go to because he was not anywhere near high school level. He wasn't at 8th grade level. And they spent junior and senior year cramming that. And then what we ended up doing with him, and I do this when I see someone's really below level, I say, okay, you know what? Let's treat senior, the 5th year when you're supposed to be a freshman. Everybody thinks you graduated, that's great. Let's go to Ivy Tech. Can we do 3 to 4 classes at Ivy Tech each semester next year? And we're going to, on our transcript, call that a senior year. And then we're going to apply to college. Because now we can justify our scores a little bit better with grades that are accurate because our test scores aren't matching our grades. Yeah. Ivy Tech's our community college right in Bloomington.
So a lot of them want to add, I had a student this year that was very involved and had 80 credits on their transcript, and I think only 44 were required for the state. But she had all kinds of crazy things on there that this kid was involved in as part of his transcript. One of the things that you'll want to do is help guide these parents to see what's expected and what you should not do. She was putting like soccer, because he played on the soccer team and gave him credits for it. And there's a way to do that as an other physical education kind of thing. But as soon as they see 80 credits, they're going to go like, what? How in the world did he have time for 80 credits? And it's just some of those things. So when you get involved with homeschoolers, you're going to have to get really engaged in some of this and giving some hard feedback to these people, because otherwise, they're going to have to do the one thing they don't want to do, and that is provide the colleges with that documentation, because they're going to get themselves in trouble.
So here's an example of a good transcript in our opinion. Can we make that bigger? We helped this mom with the 80 credits. One of the things she would do is she would count calculus as 3 credits because we were still finishing up in the summer, so I counted it as summer school. No, just because you took longer to do it doesn't mean you can count it as summer school. So these are a lot of hard conversations a lot of times, and I often will do it with a tongue-in-cheek little laugh and then have some fun with them and explaining to them that they can't do that. But this is this lady's that we actually had to take and put all of her son's PE and such on there. We went through the whole, this was 3 appointments for transcript. That's why I'm saying I think it's worth charging extra to homeschool families, especially if it's their first child. And I think it's worth saying, hey, for your first child, I'm going to go through this and help you get it set up right. So we're going to do $4.99 just for your transcript. But we went through, found all the state codes for her. And I'm trying to find all of her PE. Oh, did you know she counted driver's education on here? Driver's education is not taught in our local schools anymore. You go and you take a class on your own. So we had to go find that state code since she wanted to count it as a credit. And then some of the things like Spanish were done on a mission trip. And that's what she counted as his Spanish for the year. Yes. And she had it listed as something like Spanish immersion, Mexico mission trip. Yeah, we're going to have to provide documentation for that, you know. I don't actually see his soccer on here, so we must have even maybe taken it out because she was the one with 80 credits.
So Kim,
Anything else?
do you do this for them, or are you guiding the parent who's working on their own computer?
Well, we're guiding them, and we make them do it, and then they come back and show us. And like this lady had 3 appointments before I said, okay, now we can send this to Hillsdale, IU, and Butler, before I would not let her send it. So they're doing it, they're coming back.
And then do you find the university wants, what do you find the university wants from them outside of the transcript? And anything additional?
Nothing.
Okay.
Our families who listen to us and do this have to provide nothing. If the GPA and the test scores are there, those families just sing our praises. They're like, oh my gosh, the test scores and GPA matched. And they literally tell the other families the feedback they get from Butler, IU, Hillsdale. They have been thanked for having their GPA and test scores be equivalent to each other.
And do you have the student in the additional essay section, do you have them write about why they are homeschooled?
I do. I think it's really important that they add that in the additional section, or something unique you need to know about me. Because sometimes, like one of our girls was a violin virtuoso, so it was really important that she write why she homeschooled, because she was traveling all over the world playing violin. But that wasn't coming out in any of her essays, so we added that.
Now, she ever takes Spanish, that's a Spanish too, on there. Did she ever take course?
Just doing our math SAT prep in her mind was enough of a curriculum of math in that situation. So watch out for those those things that could be asked of you, and be ready to say no, because that's not appropriate. That you're teaching them math through just SAT prep. So those are just some things that could pop up.
That's the family that I've avoided for 6 months. So I went through to our end slide. So this is literally where we end when we're talking to homeschool families. And we'll have 20, 30 moms, never the dads, show up at those meetings because they're scared of their transcript. So it really has been a great introduction to them and a great way for us to bring in homeschool families. Anything else you can think of? Questions? Okay. I think we're set. If we can keep moving and get on to the roundtables.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you. Look,